Kia ora tātou everyone. And such an honour to follow Sharon.
Oh!
Sharon, honestly, you know, your mum and dad, and when we talk Joe Hawke, we should talk Remy Hawke. Hey, man, what a woman. She's about as short as me. And we were on either side of Joe. When he walked up to that gate, and he said to the police, lined up, he said, "Let me pass." Woo! And they captured it. And Merata was on the other side behind the police, and she captured that moment. And he said it 3 times, "Let me pass. Let me pass. Let my people through." Woo, man, that's rangatiratanga in action. And we were all behind him then, and we pushed and shoved, and we didn't get through. But it was a moment, you know, sometimes you have those moments in life where everything comes together. There's a confluence of the zeitgeist, the spirit, the wairua of the moment, and that was Joe's moment. And I thought, just before that, we'd had the message from, I think it was Sir Hugh, we had from the Trust Board that they wanted him to desist. Well, basically, get out. Get out and get off. So he wasn't just up against the police, Muldoon, the whole Pākehā community, but he was up against your own people, your own cousins, uncles. And that's really where it must have hurt your dad. But my goodness, it was amazing, and you know, I won't say I was ever beautiful when I was a girl, but you know, I had my moments. But it was, when I was up at Waitangi, and the police were coming with, no not Waitangi, but Bastion Point, and the police were coming with the dogs, it just coincided with one of the days that I was staying. I think with Diane Prince in their tent. And I got in my car, the police came, they put the dogs on us. Oh my God, Amarohi is here. You'll see the photos of the vigilante. We had a post, and the person that manned that post, she was like our sergeant at arms, was Amma, and she's here today. Wow, go Amma. It's been an amazing week. I've been in the Mana Wahine hearings with some of the bravest women I know. And Joe would be the bravest man I know. But I was staying with Diane, and I went home, and it was early hours of the morning, and I fell asleep at the wheel, and I crashed into a bus. And that's how come I got this bung eye. And I had about 11 or 12 operations to make me look this good. But anyway, I'll wear it as my badge as honour. And when we got dragged off that night, someone rang me, they said, "Donna, the cops are coming, they're going to take us off." So I was working as a psychologist then. I got in my car, drove over to the point, got in there and waited, and I was in the whare. I was sitting in the whare, and with my big bushy hair, and just we waited for hours and hours and hours. Could hear all the noise out there. We were the last bastion. We were to hold tight there, and we were told, "You must resist, but passively." So we were shown, while the police were outside, how to be dragged. So you put your arms up like this, and then they drag you along the ground. Yeah. Oh, anyway, I was quite pleased at how I got dragged out. Anyway, my goodness me, and we never saw, you know, in those days, when you're sitting there terrified, the police are going around, the bloody helicopters are going, and the trucks are going, and our people are telling us, "Donna, my God, you can't believe how many police are here." So of course you're a little bit nerve-wracked. And I was a senior psychologist with the Department of Education, and I had already been suspended so many times. I thought, my God, this one, I'm really going to get the chop on this one. A bit nervous. But anyway, that was, and who knew that you would become the third wealthiest iwi as a result of our actions? Wow. So you know what I mean? It's better to do than not to do, because if we hadn't done, then they wouldn't have. Okay, so tomorrow marks 50 years since another big action happened, and it was a turning point for Māoridom. And it was actually today that we came up in a bus, I and the members of Ngā Tamatoa. We'd had a big conference of the young leaders at the end of 1970. We had formed Ngā Tamatoa, and this was the first action we took. We decided to come up here and to object to the celebration that happened up here, in which was theatre, in which the play was how brilliant our race relations were, how wonderful the Crown was in honouring the treaty, and they had all the military, the boats in the harbour, the military band, they pulled the flag up, and it was a day of pomp and ceremony. And we decided that we would disrupt that ceremony, but we would do it with dignity. So we were told, wear black, bring your korowai, we're going to march around the outside of the grounds where they do their thing. We had negotiated with the police to let us on, and so we did. We met at Kawiti Marae. We met at Kawiti Marae, and then we came over here, and we got over the bridge, went in, and we started to walk around. And the bravest thing I've ever seen in my life took place that day. And forgive me, people from the Mana Wahine clan who heard me tell the story this week. But as we walked around, the Governor General was speaking, and they were starting to pull the flag up, and Hana Te Hemara, who was a beautiful, beautiful Taranaki woman, she had this incredible, she was in black and she was long, and she had this korowai on, and her beautiful hair back with her things there, it just looked magnificent. And she bolted. She ran for the flagstaff, and she ran towards the Governor General, and her objective was to grab the mic and to stop him. That happened 50 years ago tomorrow. So people, I would love you to remember. Really the greatest hero of my time, and I've lived with them all. I had Sutatai, Whinakupa, Auntie Eva, Nanako, everybody, Mira, but in actual fact, the greatest woman and my greatest mentor was a little woman from Taranaki who never learned the reo, but who spent a year on a bus collecting signatures so that her children and grandchildren could learn the reo. And she was successful to a point, and I spent 6 months on that bus with her. So I feel, we really must start telling Hana's story. We've been telling Mira's story all week, and it is a magnificent story. There was one and only Mirazazi. Man, was there a more beautiful woman? The two of them. In fact, look at us. Activists are pretty good looking. No, you know what it is? It's because we feel passion. That's why. And passion is a sensual quality that emanates. Pheromones and all of that, but it comes down to feeling passion. So we're not actually that attractive, we just seem to be. Anyhow, in 50 years, it's time to reflect. When better to reflect on what we've achieved in 50 years, and from someone like me who was there with all the others, Toda Erawera was there, and Tameiti, and Roy Matakirikiri, oh gosh, I can't remember, but who else? All here. The Ohias, yes. Anyway, there were a lot of us. But to remember that and to look back on what we achieved, and what I said this week at the Mana Wahine, at the Mana Wahine hearings, is that in fact we failed. We did not succeed because our objective was to have the treaty recognised and to have the treaty brought in, and to put wrong the rights. And the way you put wrong the rights is actually to make it right. To have the tino rangatiratanga of Māoridom, of the tribes, recognised. To have power sharing. To have an end to what we had under the colonial system. And we did not achieve that. We got somewhere near that, but in actual fact where we wanted to be, we've been a complete failure. It's been 46 years since we got the Waitangi Tribunal. And I remember when Matt Rata and Norm Kirk got that through Parliament. They got it through in the dead of night. When the Labour caucus was all in bed, they put it through. There was urgency on something else. And I remember Matt told the story many, many times. It was such an incredible moment how they got it through, because you all think that it's national and ACT that's got all the racists, but actually Labour's right up there. Yeah. And in those days, there were more of them than there are today. And they were definitely not in favour of establishment of the Waitangi Whenua. So Norm Kirk, who was a great man, and Matthew concocted this scheme. And you know, he's from the north, he's Muri Whenua, you must own this man. And one day, I told you last year, I want to see a monument to Matiu Rata, because he got that Lincoln legislation through for all of us. And he was just, you know, he really was brilliant. You couldn't see as brilliant because he was such a rambling speaker. Yeah, so you couldn't actually see that. My God, the guy's a genius. Anyway, we owe him a great deal, is all I'm saying. And when we look at everything that we went for in Ngā Tamatoa when we were young, you know, I can look around at the things that I was involved in, and we haven't got there. You know, when in those days we argued about the prisonisation of our men, but in actual fact it's worse today than it was then. You know, it was 0 in 1913, now Māori women are 60% and rising. Our Māori men are 50% and rising in prison. Our unemployment rate then was 3 times the Pākehā rate. Today I think it's, in December, was something like 2 and a bit times. You know, it's things have improved, but not where we need them to be. And every time we make a big move, like we get kohanga reo going. We've got kohanga reo going, then we've got 800 of them. And then government forced us to go out of the umbrella of TPK and move into education and become early childhood education centres under a whole new set of criteria. And of course, immediately, from 800 we went down to 400 within a year. It smashed the kohanga movement. Then we started with kura kaupapa, and we went from 0, 1 at Wani Waititi to 50, like that. It just went zoom. We were on a roll, people. So what did Labour do? They put a step on it. They said, at 60, you can have no more. That was Trevor Mallon. At 60, you can have no more. And our enthusiasm waned. You know, the thing is, when you're powerless and you get a bit of a run on, and then you get stopped, you kind of go back into that powerlessness dungeon, and that's what happened to us. We could probably make a big move on kura, but you know what? They kill the spirit of our movement, and that's what they do. I'm just going to give you those little examples. But the question of today is what about the future? Sorry, I've got notes, otherwise I'll go on too long. Okay, so why is it? Why have we made so little progress? It hasn't been through lack of time. I've been party with amazing women and amazing men who have given their all, really they have, for our people, a selflessness. And yet, here we are. 46 years of hearings, all the settlements. And do you know their combined value? 2 months of superannuation. That's all we're worth in 46 years. So can I say, yeah man, that was so great. Weren't we cool? We marched around there and we came back year after year, and I got arrested many, many, many times, belted, booted, you name it, I've had it physically from the police. And you think, what did we achieve when all that and all of the efforts were tried from historians, sitting with magnificent lineups of panels, people like, Hirini Mōkō-Mead and, I can't remember them all, but, Po Tema and them, all our rangatira that sat on those panels, Areta Kōpū and them, and all we got was 2 months worth of superannuation. And the irony to me is that because we die so young, we don't even get that superannuation. It's mainly Pākehās. Gosh, they said to me, because I'm 72 very shortly, they said, you know, you're one of a few. There's only 2,000 of you. There's only 2,000 over the age of something like 65. I mean, I'm already a living miracle. I've lasted this long. But to have that as our benchmark of success, no. We failed you. I and my generation of activists did the best we could, but we didn't do good enough. And that brings me to the issue of, so what are we going to do better? And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to reflect people like me who are there, people like Annette, like Liz, like Amma, you know, like Miriana, those who went through it. You have to start drilling us and say, why did you fail? Because we have to start dredging through and give the analysis, because there's reasons. There's three main reasons, and I'll just give them to you now. And I'll give you the good news. The good news is, this is winnable. We've actually done a lot of the groundwork that we need to get us to that tipping point where we get to the treaty. There's only one thing. It is the treaty. The Tiriti o Waitangi, that all the women who signed it signed that one. Most of the men that signed it signed that one. That's it. And what does it say? It guarantees to them to rule their own, and it gives to us the ability to carry on ruling ourselves in our tribal enclaves where we were. We had sovereignty over our people in our place, in our territories. That's what we had. We don't have it now, and that's where we're headed, or at least a contemporary version of it. Anyway, I'm glad to see you nodding away there, Army. Take the news back to your chairs. Okay, so now in 1981, I was part of Josie Keelan, Rebecca Evans and myself went to Cuba, 1979. And when we were over there, we took over, carvings and whatever, and we went to the palace. There was someone killed, and one of their members was killed in Paris, and they flew the body back to Cuba. And so Pekka, Josie and I took our taongas and took them to the gateway of the palace, of Fidel's palace. And when they came in, of course we did the karanga, we wailed to that person, that hero, and we did our haka. Well, Pekka did the haka, as only Pekka can do. One person shorter than me in the movement. It's either Pekka or Hilda, I'm not sure. But she did it. And as a result of that, we were taken into the palace and got to meet the women who were the last survivors of the hijacking. There was a military wing made of Palestinian hijackers, and it was all women. And the last few members of it, Rebecca in particular, got very, very close to them. And we learned a lot. When we came back to New Zealand, we were a different woman. We were no longer just hedonists. We were very serious about achieving our sovereignty and the treaty. And the Springbok tour was coming up. We took part in it. We decided to take over the leadership and to turn the eyes of white people, white Christian people, to our struggles instead of to South Africa where they were looking. And we did it. It was hard. We all had a lot of arrests. I think I got 18 different charges, ranging from 7 years to 14 years each. I mean, that's a lot of years. But fortunately, we did get off. But nevertheless, at the end of that, I asked the question to myself, what is this all about? What are we fighting for? So I was worn out. And I come up with the idea, it's Māori sovereignty. And I read this book that I commend to anyone young in the audience by Hannah Arendt, and it's called The Origins of Totalitarianism. And in it, she looks at her own people who for 2,000 years had been victimized and persecuted all around Europe, and they were homeless. And she said the main reason why the Jews were treated as they were is because they lacked sovereignty in place. They had no place where they had sovereignty. That was the first thing. And the second thing she said, oh, right, okay, that's my time now. try and wrap up. The second thing she said was how they keep you subjugated is by three mechanisms. One is lies and laws, the second is military, and the third is the bureaucracy. Those three things. And she talked about how there was something that got manufactured by wherever the Jews were living. They manufactured what she calls silent consent. And silent consent is when you get extremists make claims about the indigenous people or the Jews, and they are taken to be truth, but they're actually lies, they're manufactured lies, and they generate silent consent. And that's what happened to her, and that's how come 6 million of her people, the German people, allowed 6 million Jews to be put through the gas chambers and murdered, and their skin used to make lampshades out of. Just appalling treatment. They dehumanize them. And that's what white people do to us. They do lies about us, lies and laws that generate silent consent. And that's how come they take our children, they uplift our children. That's how come they arrest us. That's how come they prisonize us. And it's through, and the white people stay silent. And so that's what we're up against. But why I say we can overcome it, and why sometimes we're looking in the wrong place, is because these two big lies they tell. And our job is to overcome those lies, is to smash them. And they're simple lies. The first is, white people are superior to anyone that is not a white people. So whether you're black, indigenous, Jew, they're superior. The second is that white culture is superior to any culture that isn't white culture. And so what we have to do, and a lot of Māori think this, the number of bureaucrats I meet who give you back the government spiel, they've learnt the lie, they've memorised it, and they give it back to you when they're declining your application. But you can get around it, and the first thing we need to do as a people, and you can do this on your own, the great thing about what I'm suggesting to you is we do not need the crown. We don't have to go cap in hand. All we have to do is to start telling our own story to one another about how great we are. That's all we have to do. So that's quick and simple. And I've got 3 examples that I know very well. I won't have time to tell them to you today. I'm just going to tell you what they are. But please go on and look at them. The first one is that piss pot Pākehā one that I told you to hear last time. That any people that throw their piss and their effluent from their toilet into the street or down through their toilet into where you gather your food, this is an inferior idea. This is the dumbest thing you ever heard. And white people do that all around the world. It isn't just here in New Zealand. Every white people does it. Wherever they are, in Canada and America and Britain, across Europe, they mix effluent with food. Now that's where we're superior. The second thing we've got that's we're superior at is the patriarchy. Now I'm not going to tell you what Anne Salmon summarised for us, all of those dozens of observations from the early commentators from 1807 that talk about the gentleness of our men, that talk about the way we brought up children, such a gentle people. And she was rebutting Alan Duff, who said the once warrior's animal came from our warrior ancestors. And she says that is not what the historical record says. And so we need to get that up, because at the same time in England, the only time a woman could get her case before the courts is if he actually gouged her eyes out or nearly killed her or the children, because he owned her. Remember, they had women and children were owned by the husband who owned all their property. Now that again is the dumbest idea. Why on earth would you want to, you could only take someone to court if they nearly kill you. And that's the way white people thought about their woman over there. So that's the second. And the third one is a climate emergency, which I don't have to tell you. The clever thing that Māori do, this is where our genius comes in, is we are one with nature. We whakapapa to nature. And that brings me to our one secret weapon, which is actually whakapapa. Whakapapa gives you all the answers you need to establish your superiority. What it is something that includes, you know, when they get up on the marae, and I've seen my husband do this many, many times, we go into a strange marae, we don't know the people, he'll get a few of the hapu that they are, and a couple of ancestral names, and then he'd go to work doing the whakapapa from kahungunu, down and over to those people, and he would go down and he would connect we, the ope, to the people of that marae. Now, I've seen my husband do this. I was telling the woman, because I think it's the most brilliant thing, because I can't do it, you see. It's so clever. How on earth do you know that amount of whakapapa? That's because they're brought up with it from their uncles, Uncle Ozzy and Uncle Wee, brought it into them, so that then you know yourselves. And I met with Romana today from Te Kaputai, and he's able to do it. He was almost in a day giving us all the whakapapa, left, right and centre, up and down. And what whakapapa does, it includes you, it excludes and brings you into the group, into the safety of who you are, but secondly, it can go out and include people. That is the genius of whakapapa. And Pākehās don't have it. The only ones that got whakapapa are the kings, the conquerors, the murderers, the thieves. But the good ordinary people, the people of the land, of the villages, they got no whakapapa. They only got amnesia. Now, why this is important, and I read this chap called Walter Benjamin, if you ever get a chance to read him. He's one of the few Pākehās that I look up to, because what he said was, he said, ordinary people have royalty in them. Ordinary people are ariki. And that's the Māori way, because everyone has whakapapa. Every Māori has a whakapapa. And you know, if they say you don't have a ariki whakapapa, that's rubbish. Everyone has, you just got to find it. You just got to go up and find out where are your ariki rangatira and find them. And then come down that way rather than through, whakapapa is a bit small. So I'm going to conclude on this. The first time I came to Waitangi 50 years ago, I came as a stranger. I was brought up at Ohinemutu Pā. My mother is Ngāti Kaue, Uinuku Kōpako, Te Roro Te Rangi. So that's my homeland in Arawa. I was brought up on the Pā. My father is Ngāti Porou, whānau Ahine Tāpura, whānau Rua Taupare. And he was brought up there, and I know that area well. But when I came up here, I'm thinking of myself, I am a Ngāti Porou woman, I am an Arawa woman. But I didn't know at the time that I was a Ngāti Hine woman and a Ngāpuhi woman. So now I'm on the other side. I already know my Ngāpuhi side, which is through Te Owai of Taua, who had married Clark, and then she married Rogers, and then I come off, she married Edawera Pōkaiho Rogers, and I come off one of those Rogers. And she's buried there, and then when I interviewed Sir James Henare, I think it was 1984, I came up and we sat in the porch of Tauhenare Mai, and he said, "You're from here. Your great-grandmother is buried here." And he pointed around to the area around the back of that marae, and he said yes, because my father and him were cousins, and I had no idea I had a Ngāti Hine side. But to get that whakapapa from the Henares and from Ramona today, coming down from Rahiri, and I'm the 17th generation, and Rokumu says the 18th. I'm the 18th generation, 19th, and my moko Awatere is the 20th. So I leave you there. I am now here as one of you rather than a stranger. Now, just to say, I'm not taking any questions because I went way over my buzzer time, and I will just leave it. We have some incredible women here, and I'd just like to leave the time to them.
Kia ora. Kia ora,